Should we be concerned about Alex Ovechkin?
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Caps hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit fanduel.com/locked on to get started. So in today's episode of Locked On Capitals, we talk about how the Caps fall to the Senators big time. What does that mean? What has to change? We'll talk about that in the show. A little bit later, we will talk about Evgeny Kuznetsov and the Kuzy crawl. You know what I'm talking about when it goes to the shootout. He has the very slow entry and back and forth and always dekes out the netminder. What are the thoughts on that around the NHL? But just to get it going here, we will talk about, should there be a concern about Alex Ovechkin and how he went shotless in back-to-back games? I don't think that there's too much to be concerned about. Historically, he's gotten off to slow starts and has always found a way to impress. So the fact that he has gone shotless in back-to-back games is, it is a bit alarming, but I'm not going to hit the panic button over it. But it is a bit of an interesting thing. As we know, Alex Ovechkin is chasing down Wayne Gretzky, and he would be best served not to squander this time. And don't get me wrong, I think he would love to be scoring multiple goals every night. It just hasn't been the case. So what have the Capitals done? They've shaken things up. We know they started the season with Ovi, Backstrom, and Oshie, and then now recently it changed the last game to Ovechkin, Strome, and Wilson. And a little bit better results, I would say, out there. Wilson kind of serves as that deterrent also, and I don't want to, kind of just paint him as a tough guy, but a deterrent is definitely part of his skill set. And also Strome's a great playmaker. So I think that, at least on paper, it stands to reason that it could be successful. Ovi, despite future Hall of Famer status, is no stranger to slow starts. He went 4 games without a goal to open the season back in 2012, 2013. He still scored a league-leading 32 goals in 48 games that season. So that's what I'm talking about. If history is any kind of lesson, I don't think that we should be too concerned. If, this is getting into, let's say, 5 or 10 games and he hasn't scored a goal and he's hardly getting any shots on net, then I guess, yes, I would be a bit more concerned. But as of right now, it is something that kind of catches your attention just based on his resume. The fact that he is going to be a future Hall of Famer and the all-time leader in goals scored, that kind of thing. But I'm not going to read too much into it just because I know that, potentially what he has. And then you take a look last year. Last year, he went without a goal through the first 3 games of the season and then came back to score 42 despite missing time, either due to illness or the death of his father. So it just seems like for him, it takes a while to get the wheels moving. And once they get moving, a look out. And, to be fair, we can't put all of this squarely on Ovi's shoulders. It's the playmakers around him. Let's face it, this team has been snake bitten to start this season. A very slow start and, kind of feeding into what a lot of the critics said about this team. Ovechkin, who currently sits 73 goals away from surpassing Wayne Gretzky all-time NHL goal-scoring record, has history of strong performances even after slow starts. So, again, if history is any kind of lesson, I don't think that there's any reason to push the panic button. Again, he would be best served if he could score goals, if at all possible, since he is trying to catch Gretzky. But I think that ultimately he's doing what he can do. While the Capitals face challenges, history suggests that Ovechkin's goal scoring abilities are far from over. Calgary and Ottawa, nothing. I think they were trying to jumpstart the production by mixing up the line and adding Strome and Wilson. So you take a look, there was no real production between Calgary and Ottawa as far as Alex Ovechkin is concerned, and actually shots on net, shots on goal. He had shots, but shots on goal were zero. And, you think Alex Ovechkin is such a playmaker that when he's really dialed in, he gets a lot of shots on net. So I think that is what is kind of catching people by surprise. One of the things of noting here, and I think that ultimately why they changed it up, is Nick Backstrom and TJ Oshie lack speed. They are on the wrong side of 30 or the wrong side of 35, as a couple people on YouTube pointed out there. But I think that, to put him with Strome and Tom Wilson, I think it just is a better mix. And that's just as of right now. I think that if, they continue to not have any great production, then I think that you need to shake things up even a little bit more. But as of right now, I am ultimately not too concerned about where he's at. I think when he gets going, he will just be like previous years. Ovechkin still leads the team in Corsi share at even strength with 54.5. So that's what I'm talking about here, is that, historically, he's a great player. And, the funny thing is, in Alex Ovechkin, despite all that he's accomplished in his career, he's off by a couple games and people are already willing to cast shade on him, like his best days are behind him. And if you follow me on Twitter, I posted something on there where there was pictures like somewhere Gretzky's laughing about all of this, and just people totally taking this way out of proportion. Again, I think that he has what it takes, and he will catch him, Wayne Gretzky, that is. It's just going to take some time, and he's going to make all those people eat their words. The funny thing, however, is that when he does dial it in and he really starts playing well, those same people will say, I was just kidding. I always knew he had it within him. I'm not ever going to discredit what Alex Ovechkin has done and what he's capable of doing, and give the guy a break at the end of the day. It doesn't have to be 100% every single day, every game that he plays. It would be nice, but sometimes even the great ones out there take a while to get acclimated to the season and get going and things like that. But there is a big game coming up this weekend against the Habs, and another opportunity for him to show up, and ultimately another opportunity for the Capitals to pick up a big win. And they're going to be able to do that if Ovechkin is playing in top form. Again, I have no reason to think that he won't pick it up here sooner or later. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about the Kuzy crawl. What is the Kuzy crawl? You've seen it during the shootout. And I'll talk about that a little bit more straight ahead. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. And sometimes when you're watching a game, you're not that into it. If you have a little bit of money on it, it makes watching the games that much more exciting. You could put some money on a Commanders game. It makes it watching that much more exciting. So visit fanduel.com/locked on and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure and subscribe or follow Locked On Capitals wherever you find your podcasts, and on YouTube. The hockey season is here. Not to mention, I have some great guests coming up here in November. So subscribe or follow Locked On Capitals today. All right, in this next segment here, we are going to talk about Evgeny Kuznetsov and the Kuzy crawl, it's being dubbed. And what is that? It is that when it goes to the shootout, he has a very slow entry. He dekes it back and forth and back and forth. And he's ultimately just trying to deke out the goalie. And he has had great success, but he has also drawn a lot of ire from a lot of the other people within the or excuse me, the NHL, whether it be people, coaches, whether it be people that are referees, that kind of thing. There are a lot of people that are starting to talk about the Kuzy crawl and should it be eliminated from the sport. One of the things that Evgeny Kuznetsov spoke of is he said by the time they make it so you can't do it anymore, I'll be retired, so I really don't care. But until then, it is very entertaining and very successful. I ultimately don't know why other players haven't tried to implement it. I think that he's had great success. The funny thing is in the preseason, he didn't do it. I think maybe he just didn't want to waste it on the preseason. The history of it, he was frustrated with his lack of success in the 22-23 season and decided to mix it up. And one of the things that we know for sure about Evgeny Kuznetsov is he's a bit of a quirky guy. When he's dialed in, there's none greater than him. I think that he's a really great player when he puts in his best effort. And for him to come up with something like this kind of seems par for the course, just based on the fact that he is a bit of a quirkier guy. The main reason why I'm going slow is I want the goalie to think about it. Kuzy told Monumental's Tarek Elbashir. Kuzy's slow entry on the shootout, very effective, but has received criticism, like I said. Markstrom from the Flames was the latest victim. He got so mad, he said a four-letter word under his breath. Kuzy says, oh, yeah, I love that part. The sting of defeat. And ultimately get over it. If you're the player on your given team did it, you would love it. And I mean, he's not doing anything that's against the rules. I mean, he has a slow entry, a very, very slow entry, and it's been very effective. And until the league reviews it and they rule on it, saying that no, you can't do this anymore, or it's acceptable, things will continue to go as they are. I think that oftentimes people try to take different takes on thing and they try to reinvent certain aspects or add different things to the league, and people are always reluctant to make change. And I think that ultimately that is what's behind it, is that he's doing something that hasn't really been seen before, and he's had great success. So obviously people that are the victim of that protest it. So as for me as a Caps fan, of course I love it. Kuzy, keep going with it. I was hitting the post so many times before that. That's why I tried to stop and slow, he said. I won't get into details, he continued with a mischievous grin, but so far it's been working, and working it has, and just a very a good thing, and a very inventive on his part as well. The challenge is that he goes so slow that you lose your speed, said Kemper, who has faced the Kuzy crawl many times in practice. So then when he gets wide, it's really hard because you have no momentum to track it, so you end up reaching out of position. That's what makes it so hard. And the difficult thing I think for goalies is they've been trained a certain way since they started playing hockey. So for someone to introduce a play that they've never really been trained for, I think that kind of throws them for a loop. But that's not really our problem, is it? And like I said there, Kuzy said by the time they eliminate it, I will be retired. So who really cares? And again, I don't care. Kuzy, I hope you continue doing it. And it's what makes the game so entertaining, and it's what makes him such a unique individual. And again, I have no real problem with him doing that and having great success. And if you take a look at that game, there weren't a lot of bright spots on that particular game. So for him to come out there and find the back of the net in the shootout, again, I like those kind of things, and I think we should laud those things, not get upset about them. All right, so coming up here after the break, I will do what I have to do, is break down the Capitals' loss to the Senators. And when I say I have to, it's part of the duty of the show to do it. I don't like to talk about the team losing, but it's all about what the Capitals are going to learn from this and what we can expect from this team as they take on the Habs this weekend. And I'll talk about that straight ahead. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now, and it's important to be prepared. There's unrest in the Middle East, fires in Hawaii, hurricanes and tornadoes in Florida, earthquakes, and more. These can lead to supply chain shortages for medications or the inability to get medications in a timely manner. The Jace case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. Jace Medical now offers customizable for your Jace case with dozens of add-on medications. Choose the medication that best fits you and your family's needs. Important, Jace is continually working to expand their medication offerings. In those recent efforts, they added ivermectin as an option in the Jace case. So, health is of utmost importance, and there's not a lot of certainty in life. You need one certainty, and that is Jace Medical. So go to jacemedical.com and enter code locked on at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code locked on at jasemedical.com. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Capitals fall to the Ottawa Senators by a large margin. So there are a lot of questions that remain to be answered about how do they jumpstart this team? How do they get the offense going? How do they, eliminate coughing up the puck, staying out of their own end? How do they capitalize on momentum and even get momentum going in the first place that has eluded them thus far? Again, it's early in the season, and I'm not ready to wave the white flag on the season. I think that they will find their way. I think that at least in part, some of this is just implementing Spencer Carberry's new systems and the Capitals players adhering to those new rules and how they want to play the game. And it's difficult because under Peter Laviolette, you played a certain way, and then a new coach comes, and even though there's been preseason games. It's about rewiring your brain almost into playing a different style of hockey. And ultimately, do you have the right players on the ice to execute those plays as well? I ultimately think the Capitals do. It is a veteran-laden team, even though they did add a lot of young players on the team this year as well. So the Caps lose 6-1. The Caps are now 1-2 to start the season. The Caps are needing more from their top players like Ovechkin, Wilson, Oshie. They have the experience needed to be successful. They just need to execute Spencer Carberry's plans. They also need to work on the defense and keep it out of their own zone. The forwards will also need to help out the defense so it's not constantly under pressure. So, if the wingers, the forwards, the center, if they're out there and, the puck's in the opposite end, get in and get out there and help the defense so the puck doesn't keep finding the way to the back of the Capitals net, whether it's Kemper in net or Lindgren or Stevenson or whoever the case is. Help not air out the goalies all the time. Help not hang them out to dry. That is one of the things that Spencer Carberry said when reviewing last year's footage, is he believed the Capitals hung their goalies out to dry. Surprise, surprise. It seems to be that is the case again this year. How can they break that trend? I think it's reviewing film. I think it's going over systems and practice. Despite the fact that you've played for so many years, in a lot of cases for these guys, you're going to have to learn new tricks. So even though you are an old dog potentially on this team, you are going to have to learn how to play new systems. And I think that it's all about execution. When the Caps aren't executing, their poor play is magnified as it's finding its way to the back of the net. Carberry said it's more demoralizing, the fact that we're really struggling right now from a standpoint that we got a lot of guys that are looking to find their game early in the season that aren't there yet. We have more players than you would call normal trying to find their game. And that what's compounding the issue is now we make a mistake, it's in the back of the net. And that's what was evident against the Caps versus the Senators, is that, when they made a mistake, when they coughed up the puck, when they made some sort of defensive gaffe, they paid for it big time. The team is also looking to gain chemistry, Carberry said, like Ovi, Strome, and Wilson. Again, it was just a one game sample size, but what I saw out there, I liked. And I expect that a lot of these young guys as well are going to step up. You saw Matthew Phillips in previous games, you saw Connor McMichael. They need that kind of production from those players, but also the veterans that have been here for a long time. Like I talked about, Ovi, Strome, Wilson, Carlson, those kind of players that have been there and done that. They need contributions from all of them. I don't think it's a lack of effort. We're turning over some pucks. We're struggling right now. We're not executing well offensively. We're not clicking like a well-oiled machine. Offensively, power play, finishing chances, 2-on-1s, odd man rushes. It's not clicking, he added. They're not ending up in the back of the net. Defensively, you can tighten things up, tighten. If you can survive games, that's what we're not doing. And they don't have a lot of time to work on this as they are playing the Habs this weekend. Again, I hope they pour over film and they practice and they try to address the situations that this team is facing. The Caps have Thursday today off to rest and get ready for Montreal. We're leaving Kemp's out to dry. We're 1-2, could easily be 0-3 if Kemp's was not in net, Strome added. And that is the case. So if I hear anyone speak disparagingly of the Capitals netminders, I would say that you didn't watch the game, did you? You just looked at the score sheet. You saw who won and who lost, and the fact that they lost by a large margin, and automatically you blame the goalie. Now, I'm not going to dismiss all of the responsibility on Darcy Kemper, as he was the goalie of record. However, when you're hung out to dry and facing a lot of high danger chances, I mean, just the rule of odds that eventually it is going to find the back of the net, and it's finding the back of the Capitals net, not the opponent. That's what they need to work on. So those are all things that the Capitals are going to have to clean up before they take on the Habs, who are supposed to be a better team this year. I guess it's really too early to gauge what kind of team they're going to be, but it is going to, take a valiant effort, regardless of how they are, ranked. Whether it's going to be by odds makers or whatever the case is, that they are going to be having their best players out on the ice. The Capitals will have their best players out on the ice, and at the end of the day, the Capitals are going to have to hope that they will find a way to get a win, because this losing cannot continue, or you can expect other changes to take place. And I will talk about that in the next episode, that there is already options out there in the trade market, rumored out there, linking them to the Capitals. In all transparency, I'm recording this episode back to back with tomorrow's episode because, well, to be honest with you, if you're a parent, you understand the last few days, my daughter did not decide to let me sleep. I had about 6 hours of sleep in about 3 days. So after the game, I'm like, I'm going to wrap up this game and I'm going to go to bed and cover it for you guys today. So a bit of an apology that it's a little bit later, but that's the life of a parent and the life of being an adult at the end of the day. But it was a game that wasn't a great game to talk about. And losses are never fun to talk about. But what is important to talk about is what we need to learn from this loss. If something is learned and they can make changes and they can come away with a victory, then it's not all a loss. You know what I'm saying? That if they gained something, if they were able to improve their play, then all is not lost. And that's my real hope. But the part that's got me kind of skeptical is, they lost the first game, they eked into a victory in the second one, and they lost by a large margin in the third game. I'm having a difficult time being optimistic against the Habs. For me, seeing is believing. I don't want to hear what people say. I want to see it with my own eyes. So if I can see the Capitals start to change what's wrong, making the most of their opportunities, keeping the momentum going, stop with the odd man breakdowns, that kind of thing, then I'm going to believe. Until then, I'm going to be skeptical. But I think that, as long as the Capitals can make the changes that need to be made, then I think all is not lost and the Capitals are going to be in a good position. But it is my belief right now, and again, I'll talk about it in tomorrow's show, that a change is coming. I'm not talking about a head coach change, so stop talking about that. I still think that Spencer Carberry is a lights out head coach. And again, I like his assistants. I just think they're missing that magic ingredient. One of the things that was spoke of in the summer was that top six forward. They still need that top six forward to help jumpstart this team. It is lacking energy. It's lacking intensity. And if they have any hopes of doing anything other than playing through the regular season and then hang it up at the end of the regular season. They're going to need to come up with something extra. I know we have Pacioretty coming. I know Joel Edmondson will be back at some point, but those players are not guaranteed either. Max Pacioretty had 2 seasons in a row that he had Achilles issues, that he missed a substantial amount of time. We don't know what kind of Max Pacioretty we have. So if we're putting all of our eggs in the Max Pacioretty basket, those eggs might get crunched because we ultimately don't know what we have in him. We know who he has been historically, but this is a league of what have you done for me lately? And we don't know what he's capable of. I'm really hoping, knock on pressed wood here, that he is going to be all of that he is going to be a glimmer of that 30-goal scorer that he has been 6 different times in his career. But again, to wrap this all up for me here, seeing is believing, and I want to see it before I believe it. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. I want to thank you for all watching and listening each and every day. You are what makes this show successful. Are you a fan of other DC sports? Well, Locked On has got you covered. We have Locked On Nationals, Commanders, Wizards. So no matter what major DC sport it is, Locked On has got you covered. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.